We've hit the semi-finals of the 2022 World Cup, and since the knockout stages, there have been some refereeing performances that have been definitely up for debate. I joined with FA qualified referee Cam Wiper to give his opinions on some of the questions that I have to ask him. So straight away, has the standard of refereeing decreased and got worse since VAR has been introduced?
I don't think it's decreased and or got worse. I think all that's happened is there's more scrutiny on it. And what I would say is the margin for error is smaller than it was because we instantly see these replays, and the expectation is that the VAR can mop up behind a referee and what he misses in real time. But even VAR was only introduced to the Premier League 4 years ago. It's still a work in progress for many, many leagues across the world. It's still going to take a lot of getting used to, because you think about it, these referees haven't just arrived in the top divisions and the top level. They've taken 10, 15, 20 years to get to where they are. So it's still a learning process of how to do it. But yeah, even so, there are mistakes that happen, and that's kind of part of life. They're humans. They're going to make mistakes every now and then.
Just think with VAR being introduced a few years ago, we see in England that where we almost had the complaints of, it's great to see a European referee take control of a match in VAR because the decisions that we see in the Premier League are so poor. In the World Cup, we've seen in the England game, a referee, one of the biggest decisions of the match, a clear penalty, having to be given by VAR instead of him during a game. Do you think that VAR has been given as a safety net for referees to almost make a decision, incorrect decision, or allow the game to go on and know that they have something behind them that will give the correct result of an incident?
It depends. For referees, no, because if they stop play and they have an incorrect decision, then the only repercussion is that I think the award will be a drop ball to the team that was in possession when the VAR came into play and when the decision was made. So it works both ways in terms of the repercussions, and either way there isn't really any, because it won't affect the game if the decision that they make is wrong. So they're not holding back to hope that the VAR intervenes. They make the decision there and then after that, it might be wrong, it might not, but it doesn't affect the game if it isn't given immediately, or if it isn't given immediately. Where it is a bit of a safety net is only for the linesman, and that's with the offside calls. It's when they delay the lifting of the flag for when they think it's offside, but they think, there might be a goal scoring opportunity here. And then the VAR is really helpful as a fallback, because you let the play happen. If the referee's got it correct, then it's offside. If the assistant referee has not got it correct, for example, like the Cameroon game of Vincent Aboubakar's goal against
Serbia,
yeah. Yes. That was a prime example of that fallback option working. But for referees, I don't think that is the case as such.
It doesn't. You said that if the foul isn't given straight away, it's not going to ruin the game or the result. It's hard to understand watching a game, especially as a fan. If you look at it as a journalist, you can sometimes make pieces together, but especially in games we've seen in the past few days, the penalty that was given by VAR on Mason Mount, the Argentina, I can't remember which player it was, but just booting the ball into the Holland bench.
Leonardo Paredes.
I know you're going to say everyone makes a mistake, but how does 4 people on a pitch side and seemingly 100 people inside a VAR room not see, hang on, one person doesn't go, that's quite bad?
Well, as you said, there isn't this easy way of saying that, that's what they should have done. In the way, yes, most people will have an opinion that is on what happened, particularly the Paredes incident. For me, personally, it would have been a yellow card for the tackle and a yellow card for booting the ball away. Those are 2 things that should have been picked up on, but they weren't, and, it happens. The VAR can't turn back and say that was because it's two yellow card offences, they can't action that incident because it's not a red card offence. So they can't, unless the tackle was particularly dangerous or if they booted the ball straight at a player. But it didn't hit a player, it hit the bench. So they can't say that it's a red card offence. So that was up to the referee to make the decision in the heat of the moment. And if you think about it, as soon as that's happened, you've got all of the Dutch players running in, all of the Argentinian players running in. The referee's focus is not on what course of action to take. It's to stop this from escalating so that there's less red cards, basically. Because if it goes into a full-on brawl, you're going to have 9v9, 8v8 or something like that because people will, there's violent conduct. And what the referee's priority is making sure that the issue is contained so you can allow him that sort of error. With regards to the penalty against, so the penalty for England when Mason Mount is shoved to the ground, in real time that happens quite quickly, and at first look it can look like a shoulder barge. It's only when you slow it down and see a really tight shot of the incident where you see that I think it's Teo Hernandez uses his arm to sort of lever Mason Mount away from the ball, and in that case the VAR worked, it did its job, and I don't think it was a red card based on the fact that Mason Mount was never in possession of the ball. It might have got through to him if the play continued without Teo Hernandez's intervention, but we don't know that for sure. So it's not a clear and obvious error to say that was a red card. But the VAR did do its job in terms of giving the penalty.
Is there a cause for consistency, though? Because that decision was unfathomably not given, but we see in the same match, Phil Foden going over with barely being brushed, and Mbappe's gone down very easily. There's a lot of arguments of referees should allow the game to be played. The English FA are big supporters of just allow the game being played. But when there's decisions like that of like barely a finger touches a player and they go down, and then you have decisions like the Harry Kane one that wasn't given as a free kick or a penalty. I think it was outside the box, so how that wasn't given as a free kick. It's just consistency that was wanted, really, isn't it? Because especially also, we mentioned the Argentina-Holland game. Denzel Dumfries got booked, was it for encroaching during a penalty shootout?
He got sent off.
Yeah,
but
booting a ball towards people on a bench is not given. It might, even if it didn't hit a player, it could have hit someone in the crowd, could have hit anyone.
Yeah, it's a yellow card offence. It's not a red card offence.
Yeah, but it's a 2 yellow card offences. There's 2 offences there that are both yellow card worthy. It's just consistency of actually booking them both times.
Yeah, but that's, again, heat of the moment. The referee's going to make mistakes. You've got a huge amount of eyes on that game. And as I said, I've already justified what must have been going through Lahoz's mind going through the Paredes incident. And with the fouls in the England-France game, again, it's all sorts of things can be getting in the referee's head there. The angle at which he's seeing things, because of course every single fan that's watching on TV has fantastic view of it from above. They can see very clearly the picture, whereas the referee's running, he's got players in front of him, he's only seeing one side of the action. And I think particularly for him with, I don't know if you mentioned it, but the Saka foul, when Saka goes down before Tchouaméni goes and scores his goal, particularly with that one, there's one bite at the cherry which seems fair enough, and then the second bite is what probably would be deemed as a foul. But from where the referee's seeing it, it's the opposite side of Saka and I think it's Upamecano at the time. It's the contact is made at the wrong side for the referee to see it. In that instance, possibly the linesman should intervene.
I'm going to have to butt in and say it's embarrassing that the linesman's not even thought about it, because it's clearly, 5 yards away from him. He's called an assistant referee, not a linesman. He's got there to assist a referee if a referee may not have a good position.
Yeah, and again, it's just human error. And
do you think that's a bit too easy for people to say? Obviously, you're a referee and you lived through maybe not getting the correct decision, but it's a human error. It's a massive error that's clear to probably everyone in the stadium at the time. I guess Didier Deschamps probably would have thought, Teo Hernandez getting sent off there for a off-the-ball incident, which the ball's in the air, there's no one within 10 yards of the incident. Everyone's got their eyes on it, and the linesman is in perfect position. Do you think it's a little bit too easy to say everyone makes a mistake in the game because they're meant to be FIFA elite referees, but making easy mistakes like that is just quite embarrassing for the sport, really.
Well, then you could say that Kane missing his penalty was a mistake, and he's the best striker that England have, and he really should be scoring that penalty, but he made a mistake. The referee, I don't know his name, but the Brazilian guy would be Wilfried Sampaio. He is Brazil's best referee if he's been nominated to go to the World Cup, and he made a mistake. He made several mistakes, but that's fair enough. It happens. And regards to, again, Hernandez not being sent off, I've already said it wasn't a red card offence. Last man doesn't mean anything. It's not a clear and obvious goal scoring opportunity because Mount never has control of the ball. It's a yellow card for a clear foul where he's not made any intentions to play the ball. It's only a yellow card. It can't be a red.
I understand it's not a red, but I think the fact that it wasn't given in the first place is clearly embarrassing. I think that if you look at it, we've had this conversation for the past decade. Our referees getting worse. Mark Lawrence in 2013 wrote a piece in the Daily Mirror saying referees are getting worse, and that was, I think it was Mike Housey on the Gail Giramana incident where he almost had his knee snapped off by James McCarthy. Are referees getting worse, and is there a reason for it, such as the way that referees are perceived on the pitch in their actions and thoughts about referees?
I think the only thing I can say on this is the amount of abuse that referees get for any it doesn't matter whether they get the decision correct or incorrect, they will still get abuse for it from one team, because there's always going to be someone that's upset by a referee decision. So the people that make it as referees aren't necessarily the best referees that are out there. They're the referees that have the thickest skins, basically. They're the ones that can sort of, take themselves out of the situation, and the criticism they know is not personal against them. It's against the decision. So it's a mindset that these elite level referees have. But it doesn't necessarily make them the best at making the calls. The ones that are the best at making the calls might be lost to things like falling out of love with refereeing because of things like the vile and apparent abuse that referees suffer every single time they step onto the field of play.
So I think the first quote that you said was, we haven't got the best referees on the pitch because of the way that referees face abuse. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But when you see refereeing performances, especially in England this season, there was a Mark Cucurella incident where his hair got pulled and that wasn't a red card. I think refereeing is getting worse from especially 10 years ago, where because we have that VAR now, we have the safety net. I know I've said that referees try to use it, but there is the safety net there of if something isn't spotted. There's about 100 people in that VAR room now. How things aren't being spotted, especially violent conduct stuff, that's almost the basic things of that's written in the rules.
They're being spotted, but they're being interpreted differently to how other people are seeing them. With regards to the hair pull on Cucurella in the game between Chelsea and Spurs earlier this season, that's an incident where really the referee should be getting that right, and the VAR should really be stepping in to get that correct. But again, it's the people in the VAR booth are elite level referees. Again, they're not necessarily the best. They're the ones that have the thickest skin. So, like you said, it's not gonna change anytime soon in the culture around how referees are perceived. It's not going to change anytime soon in seeing the referees with the best amount of talent for the job to get through rather than the ones that have just got the thickest skin. We're not going to see that. That's an unrealistic view. So it's just going to have to be football fans accepting what happens. And VAR has done its job more often than it hasn't. And then you said that the England game was a bit of a farce, the Argentina game not so great, but there's ways of explaining those decisions, and it's about how they're interpreted. And at the end of the day, the referees are they know a huge amount about the law of football, and they're doing their best to keep within those and to stick by them to the most minute details, such as last man not actually being a codified law in football. It's the denial of obvious goal scoring opportunity. Because Mason Mount never receives the ball, it can't be denial of an obvious goal scoring opportunity. It's those sort of things that football fans they have a vague understanding of the laws of football, but they don't have a complete understanding of the laws of football, whereas the referees will have a much better understanding. So the differences in opinion, that sort of thing, and then the abuse that comes with it, that's why we won't ever see the real best referees arriving. And particularly with social media, there's more and more hate towards referees, so they'll be more inclined to drop out at a young age. So that's why it could be perceived that the referees we're seeing now are worse than they were a few years ago.
Thank you very much for your time, Cameron. Put your comments in below in this YouTube video, because I think everyone's got differing opinions. I think it's a cop-out to say referees are humans and they make mistakes, because, quite frankly, if there's 7 or 8 of them officiating a game, there's got to be a correct decision either way, if it's clear or not at all. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you again to Cam, and hopefully we'll see you soon.